Hello, my name is Roman Ginjihashvili, and today we're going to discuss novelties, some novelties that occurred in some big tournaments, latest international tournaments, but it's not too many. I will show you valid novelties, interesting novelties, and not such a great novelties that's been played by top players in the world, actually played by Kramnik, and I will explain the nature why it was played. Actually, it will be very interesting to know the story behind the novelties, and then how we refute them. Also, I would like to introduce you to series of novelties that we adapted in our opening repertoire, namely the Grand Prix attack, and there are some significant improvements for white. In some, not that white had bad position before, but something that will help us to get most out of it. So this is going to be very interesting DVD. I have to point to you that there is no opening is played today in any tournament that is considered the correct, the same, to play it the same way it was played several years ago. Every opening in chess theory is being improved, is being updated, and it's being filled with different continuations and possibilities, and so is our openings. So sit back and get ready to very interesting addition to your opening repertoire. So let's start with our Grand Prix opening in Sicilia. Well, I have few significant improvements in the fianchetto line, which is the probably most common, and in non-fianchetto lines when black plays e6. A lot of people felt very uncomfortable playing against non-fianchetto lines because I have to admit, if black does not play fianchetto, white's plan is not that clear as in the fianchetto line. That does not mean it's better for black, no. But once white is very comfortable and knows a lot more in non-fianchetto lines, you should be just as comfortable as in fianchetto lines, and you should be very optimistic in getting some good positions. So let's go on with fianchetto lines first, in any order. So g6, knight f3, bishop g7, we go bishop b5, and this is the fianchetto line first, where black plays knight d4 normally, and when we play castle, we do play castling here, black goes a6, bishop c4, possibly b5, bishop d5, rook b8. This is all on our previous DVDs. So we're gonna go d3, e6, and bishop b3. The main move you should expect here is knight to e7. This position we reply normally with knight takes d4, and this is a good way to play. And black obviously has two ways to recapture. On bishop takes d4, king h1, and if black castles, white can go knight e2, and after bishop g7, possibly c3, and on d5, maybe even queen e1 or bishop c2. This is, I would say, approximately equal position. This is one way to play for white, and the other way to play for white after the castling is e5 move that creates threat of knight e4 and also knight e2. So that's another option to play. So, but if black goes d6, then again there is a pawn sacrifice with e5, de, and knight e2. You see, if black captures on f4, then we're going to take on d4, followed by bishop takes f4, and we have certain control on dark squares and absolutely sufficient compensation for it. But if you played this position, I would expect 9 out of 10 players would take here with the pawn. And then we go knight e2, and normal response is d6, queen e1, castle, and we go queen f2. Well, here I'm introducing you a new idea. I analyzed it carefully, and I think white has very good, promising position after knight c6 by playing f5. Now, why do we play f5, and why do we sacrifice a pawn? First of all, white is threatening f6 to completely shut this dark square bishop off. G takes f is not a good way to recapture, because white simply takes back and bishop is open now, queen a g3 will come and knight f4 will come. White has very, very promising attacking position. So only natural way to play this position is by taking ef. Now if white takes ef, black is going to win a pawn, and it's absolutely unclear what white has for a pawn. However, the correct reply is knight g3, which gives white very, very strong position. If pawn takes on e4, knight takes e4, followed by bishop g5, possibly knight f6, and we have very strong open bishop. I thought white has very sufficient compensation for a pawn, and when I asked Ripka's opinion about this position, I was pleased to find out that white is a lot better than that. They have big, maybe decisive advantage and decisive attack. And seriously, f7 pawn is hanging. Bishop g5 is a big time threat, followed by queen h4, and it's very hard, if possible at all, for black to contain, to neutralize white's attack. For example, d5, bishop g5, and on f6 we can take on f6 and have absolutely crushing position followed by queen h4. For example, on queen d6, queen h4, we have absolutely decisive advantage. So that is one interesting idea. f5, ef, knight g3. Actually, I look in various different situations. You can, when black does not allow f5, you can do the same. Sometimes I had it even with a knight on e7. For example, if black plays queen b6, there is a possibility of playing f5. That's another thing. And if black takes ef, this now is also very strong, maybe even better. Now we go bishop g5. We simply attacking knight, which is very hard to defend. Well, on the rook e8, we're going to go knight g3, keep more pressure, put more pressure on f5 pawn, which cannot be removed from f-file because of f7 weakness. And it's pretty bad for black. And if black moves the knight, we can continue with the same knight g3 move. And now we want to take on f5 and push f6, or take on f5 and then take on g6. So either way, white has very, very strong initiative by sacrificing this pawn. Now, which means this is the new weapon in our arsenal. Sometimes when black thinks that they control white's f5 move, white can simply play it anyway, just sacrifice the pawn by opening the bishop, actually opening. It's interesting how f5 moves after ef, one pawn move. It's fascinating to see how this simple move opens two bishops at the same time. You see, now dark square bishop is kind of blocked with f4 pawn, and light square bishop blocked with black's e6 pawn. And after we play f5, if black takes, you see both bishops wide open. And after bringing knight in a game as well, so white brought three minor pieces very actively. And actually I told this some GM colleague, and he said, it's not three pieces, it's five pieces you brought. And when I thought, I said, yeah, he is right. When we play f5, after ef, we open light square bishop, we open dark square bishop. After we go knight g3, we bring the knight into the game and open the file for queen and the rook. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces open. This is for the price of one pawn only. White has great positions, and this is idea for you to play in various positions of fianchetto response by black in Grand Prix. Now let's go to non-fianchetto version of Grand Prix, where black plays e6, and I want to go through the variation that was given on every DVD where I discussed this opening. Bishop b5, knight e7, e takes d, queen e2. Now this position I claimed on both versions of Grand Prix that white is better, I was making this statement, and I'm standing now behind it. The reason why I'm bringing this on, because some people said they did disagree with me. Some very strong players, they disagree with me. They didn't say black has an advantage. They disagree that white has an advantage. They played it several times. They had mixed results, and I had to take this analysis a lot farther and deeper, and I came to some fascinating discoveries. Actually, maybe very interesting. That shows you how deep chess can be and how many hidden possibilities are in this opening. So, move we want to discuss is Queen d6. Now, I quickly refresh your memory here. White's idea to double black's pawns, for example, on a move like a6, to double black's pawns, that's very important. Why? Because, first of all, black will not be able to castle queen side. This is one important factor. Secondly, white is going to have idea of playing b3, bishop a3, and queen a4 and knight a4, targeting c5 pawn that is very difficult to play against. Now, and that's why black tries the opposite, try not to get its pawns doubled on the c file. Queen d6 is the only way to do that, because bishop e6, white simply takes and black cannot recapture with the knight. And bishop d7 simply drops a pawn. So queen d6 is the only way to do it. And after queen d6, we play knight e5. So far, there is nothing new. Black, now we threatening to take on c6 with a bishop. Black plays bishop d7, bishop takes c6, bishop takes c6, and now we go knight b5. This is all was given. All this was given in our previous version of Grand Prix, and this position became the subject of wide discussion between myself and some strong players, and they had some valid point. They were not right, but they had some point that makes sense. Black has two retreats. Taking on b5 is not possible, because after queen takes b5, black loses quickly. There is no king d8, knight f7, and there is no knight c6, because queen takes b7, attacking rook and attacking f7 pawn. So the only move for black is to move the queen. And here comes the move, one of two moves, queen to b8 and queen to d8. Previously on our DVDs we said on both moves, queen b8 or queen d8, we take on c6 and mission is accomplished. But the valid point that those players made, that there are not too many pieces on board, and once black plays, for example, f6 and I'm castle king f7, white may be better, but it's not that clear. Well, we're gonna go f5. We are still having little advantage, but it's not too much on queen h5, even king g8. So, and we had argument back and forth until I came up with a very interesting discovery. So again, we have to look at both moves, Queen B8 and Queen D8. Once we started talking about the Queen D8 move, let's go on with it. This position is very, very bad position for black. And the move that white makes here is highly unusual, but very straightforward, very direct, and create murderous threat. Move that was missed by me in the previous analysis. Move is F5. That creates absolutely devastating threat of knight takes F7. I played on internet against one relatively strong Russian GM. He played A6. Knight F7, King F7. No, actually, King F7 loses the queen right away because Queen E6 and Knight D6 check. That's not possible. After Knight F7, Bishop takes B5 was played, and now Queen E6. After Queen D7, Knight takes H8. Pawn takes, and there is no way black can capture this knight. Black simply lost exchange and has totally lost position. Now on Knight F5, I played King D1 because I want to stop Knight D4 threat, and also plays the Rook on E1. Game was over in a few moves. Black lost. So F5 is the highly, very difficult, noticeable move, and most of the time when you play F5, what black doesn't suspect Knight takes F7 threat, because logical thinking will tell you that white does not have high enough concentration of pieces on the king side to develop the murderous blow like Knight takes F7. After long analysis, I came to conclusion that there are two moves by black. Rook G8 is one move, very ugly looking move, which can never be good, but comparing to the options is second best, because now Knight takes F7 is not going to work because of Bishop takes B5. But what we're going to do, we're going to simply castle here. And black has absolutely awful position. And there is no good way to conclude development. Although this is the second best option for black, and the best move by far is D4. We can simply castle here, or we're gonna have an advantage here, or we can play A4 as well. After A4, possible continuation. Now after A4 is Bishop D5. We castle, A6, Knight A3. That's why we played A4 to stop B5. Knight A3. Black still has to solve the problem of their king. Queen C7, and here another very unexpected move. C4. And on Bishop C6, simply d3. Bishop f4 is coming. If black castles, f7 is hanging. Knight may come to c2 and then support b4, and black is still having serious problems developing their pieces. Big advantage for white. And the other option is on d4, it's to simply instead of a4, simply castling. That's another option, which is not bad at all. Now, black's best move, believe it or not, is d3. Actually, we shouldn't even be going through this continuation, because move I recommend is a4. In this position is a4. But I am showing you the other continuation just to demonstrate the power of white's position. d3, this is also a big advantage. Queen h5, g6, knight takes c6. Now, best move is g takes h, knight takes d8, rook takes d8, and the c4, with serious advantage for white. Actually, I didn't want to go any farther, but I think in the original position, which is, I call original position is after d4, I think if we go on, we're gonna find several more ways of getting advantage for white. Maybe c4, maybe knight a3 right away. So, but the best move a4 gives very solid advantage. This is with queen to d8. Now let's go to the other move, queen b8. And I believe previously I recommended knight takes c6, bc, and knight c3. And I said that after queen takes f4, we can go simply d3, and later castle, and white has enough compensation for a pawn. This is probably the truth, but it's not the best way to play. What we should do on queen b8 is we should play castle. We should simply castle here. When we castle, black has no way of stopping knight takes c6. Now, whatever they play, we can take on c6, go knight c3, and now we still have the same plan, b3, bishop a3, and queen a4, having very, very serious advantage. On f6, we should go f5, and this is not a pleasant position for white. Let me show you approximate analysis. Well, after queen b8, concretely, analysis was provided by Rivka after we gave her quite a bit of time, which makes analysis a lot higher quality. So, after castling, f6, best move. Every move made by black is the best. bc, knight c3, king f7, and f5, just as I mentioned, queen e5. And here we could move the queen to f3, and I believe white is better. But Rivka came up with absolutely brilliant idea, And amazingly, you can tell, you're going to see now that position that looks very harmless for black is very bad position. After queen takes c5 and b3, white is coming bishop a3, followed by knight a4. The best move for black is knight g8. As you can see, knight on e7 doesn't have any reasonable square, and c5 pawn has to be protected. Knight goes to f6 and possibly d7. See, so that black's goal. And at the same time, they temporarily protect the c5 pawn. So after knight g8, we go bishop a3, and now knight f6, we go d3, rook d8, we go rook a e1, and after knight d7, knight a4. Finally, black develops the bishop, and we go c4. I looked at this position carefully for a while, and let me tell you this: I would absolutely hate to play this position for black. Black has terminal weakness on c5, which white can put a lot of pressure on. For example, going rook c1 and doubling rooks on c file. And if black goes d4, then they have absolutely lost strategically position with a weak square on e4. For example, after c4, well, just look at it. We're going to go knight b1, knight b2, knight d1, f2, and e4. This is one way to play this position. And the other way to play is simply continue with g4, king g2, and building position on king side, knowing that black knight and a bishop, they will never be able to move from here. So position is real bad for black, and this is the best they have. Well, if this bad position is the best they have, and we have other options to play, we can go with queen f3, and then we're going to try to play b3, or we can go queen takes e5, as I just mentioned. Very pleasant choice, and very nice options by white. Now I want to go to a different option for black that number of people, including myself, we had some kind of uncertainty how to play those positions. And positions I'm talking about when black does not do fianchetto, and in this position they do not play d5. And these positions are very interesting to analyze. And I did, since this was probably the weakest point, weakest in a way that we are not that comfortable, not because it's not good position. So after d6 is one continuation, and knight e7 is the other continuation. As I already mentioned, g6 in this position, I mentioned it on my DVDs, is not an option because d4 gives white very serious advantage. g6 and e6 moves, they don't go together if white can play d4. So this is well explained on my DVDs. So move we want to go is d6 or knight e7. It's two different variations. And let's start with d6. On d6, we have to go, we continue the same way, bishop b5, bishop d7, d3, knight f6, white castles, bishop goes to e7, and this position I made some very interesting analysis and came to conclusion this is very solid advantage white has in this position, and it's the way that I did not describe on previous DVDs, and here is for you to watch, because positions after bishop takes c6, bishop takes c6, what we played, and I was suggesting previously queen e2 and then bishop d2 and rook a e1. They are okay for black and for white. Position is approximately equal, and it's not that easy to conduct attack on a king side. Here's the improvement. In this position, we have to start immediate action, and move e5 guarantees here an advantage for very concrete reasons. And variation, it becomes open battle where I employed Ripka, and she did a great job proving that white has very strong position. There are two moves, d takes c and knight d5. Well, let's look at d takes c first. Consider the best move, and knight d5 is worst move. D takes c, f takes c, knight d5, queen e1. This is the best black can do. And black castles, queen g3, king h8, and here, well, a knight e4 is one way to play, but the move I like a lot better is knight takes d5, ed, bishop takes c6, bishop takes c6, and bishop g5. Let's talk about this position. First of all, my evaluation that white has very stable advantage. Taking on g5 is very dangerous. White has attack on f7. White can double rooks by playing rook f4, rook f1, or rook f4, h4. Very good attacking positions. And now if black goes f6, for example, white can take, black takes, and I don't know, white can get an advantage several different ways. For example, bishop takes f6 is pretty good, and on queen takes f6, simply knight e5. You see the dominating knight on e5 gives us undisputable advantage. Also, in this position, there is possible for us to play knight e5 right away, or maybe even knight h4. That's another option, because if black takes, we can take on f8 and take on g5. Either way, and then we go rook f1 and knight f5. White is clearly better in this position. So, and this is the best way to play for black. Now let's see if they don't play the best way, and if they play just like after my discovery of this analysis, I had a couple of people played against me d5, knight to d5. And it's hard to imagine that this is almost losing move. But it is. Knight takes d5. Well, it's not losing like white wins outright. White gets winning advantage. E takes d. Now we take on d6. Bishop takes d6. Now we take on c6. Bishop takes c6. And we simply play rook e1 check. After rook e1 check, the best move for black is king f8. And if they go king f8, we will go b3 as the best move. We will go through bishop e7 move after we're done with king f8. But let's see, rook e1, king f8. Now we go b3. I want to go d4 and bishop a3. b3 is a very, very powerful move. f6, d4. Queen c7. Of course, that's why we played b3. Bishop a3. And black has very difficult position because after b6, queen d2, and white is threatening to take on c5 and get big pressure on black's queenside pawns. Let's see concretely. After bishop a3, the best move is rook e8. Queen d2. Now we don't want to take on c5 yet because it's still better, I believe, for white after queen d4 move, but we can do even better here. So after rook e8, we go queen d2. Now we're threatening to win the pawn on c5, b6, bishop takes f4, we simply take on c5 and go queen d3. We are still better. After queen d2, b6, dc, bishop takes c5, bishop takes c5, bc, rook takes e8. This is a simple way to get decisive advantage. Queen e3 check, and after queen e7, very sneaky queen f2. Sneaky and good, strong. And after queen f2, king d8. Actually, after queen f2, king d8. Now we play rook e1, and you will see why king d8 and not king d7, because white will play the same way, and you will see that king on d7 will be placed very bad. And on king d8, rook e1, and on queen d6, b4, having nearly winning position. Now imagine black's king is on d7, and you will see that it's much worse for black. Now, whatever happens, white's queen penetrates black's position, and knight gets absolutely dominating outpost on d4. Black is simply lost in this position. I mean, completely lost. And a move like rook e8, we can simply take, and if king takes, go for exchange of queens. And this position is totally resignable. When white puts the knight on d4, the c5 becomes unreachable, and it cannot, inaccessible, and white has extra pawn and winning position in the endgame. This is one example what will happen, approximate white's plan. Of course, not every move is absolutely forced, but I'm showing you this continuation just so you can get an idea what our plans will be in the position that I refer as better position for white. Now let's go to different continuation, which is bishop e7. Now what happens on bishop e7? Obviously we must go queen e2, because if we let black castle, for example, if we go b3, let black castle, I think black has very good advantage in this position. The whole idea is we are not letting black castle. Queen e2. After queen e2, rook c8 was played in one of my games that I play. I try this new analysis on internet against very strong players only. I wouldn't play against weaker players because I played for training purposes and to see the truth. After rook c8, now black's idea is obvious. They want to castle. They want to castle by playing rook c7 and castling next move. And it's very obvious that we cannot allow it. We go d4. Actually, I went d4. Now cd can be met with knight takes d4, and on rook c7 knight f5, and you see they still cannot castle, or b3 with the idea of bishop a3, or bishop d2 with the idea of bishop b4. So all this is very bad for black. So b6, and it was a quite strong grandmaster playing for black. What happened here on d4, b6? Now b3, preparing bishop a3 or bishop b2. Now rook c7, and here finally black is ready to castle, but they are not going to make it because dc, bc, and after knight e5 black still cannot castle because white plays knight takes c6 and queen takes c7, winning a piece. And what's for black to do? If bishop moves, queen b5 check completely cancels black's order for castling, and on king f8 bishop a3, position is absolutely lost for black. On the other hand, there is no choice after knight e5. Black is totally lost. This is very critical and very good analysis of non-fianchetto variation or against the Grand Prix. And I never took it that far, and the reason for it, because non-fianchetto variation I approached as what is white's plan and just pursue the plan in a very slow manner. But that's the wrong way to do. The reason why I did it, because I had a lot to analyze in other variations and I was quite busy. Now when this starts bothering me, since I completely analyzed different positions or different openings, I finally came to the analysis of this position, non-fianchetto ways. And I think white after e5 gets serious advantage in both cases. Now we go to the move order that by strong players considered probably the most comfortable way to play for black. And this is e4, c5, knight c3, knight c6, f4, e6, knight f3, knight g2, e7. Now, this is the only case in Grand Prix attack where we transpose to open Sicilian, d4, cd, knight takes d4. And I have never recommended it before. I mentioned maybe this is a possibility, but I never provided, never supported it with the variations. And variations here are far from forced, and actually I cannot give you too many variations on it. It's a must, but it took too much time. It took me too much time to come to this conclusion because of the variety of possibilities from both sides. We go d4. This is the best continuation, and this is very new for us. Let me give you approximate evaluation of it and some possible developments after d4. C takes d, knight takes d4, knight takes d4, queen takes d4. And now, after queen takes d4, knight c6, queen f2. That's the best move. Queen d3, that I suggested previously, is wrong. Queen f2 is the best move, and black is going to have two choices: to develop with d6 or go d5. d5 was suggested by some of the strong players when I asked them about this position, and well, they thought black is better. In reality, white is better, and I will show you why. And the other option is d6 to get to some kind of Scheveningen type of position. But notice few differences. Queen is on f2, and one minor piece exchanged. Knight on d4, that's supposed to be always, is exchanged. It looks like it normally exchanged for c6 knight, but it was exchanged for an f6 knight. It was exchanged for c6 knight, but the g8 knight is on c6. This gives us some radical changes in evaluation of this position. Let's go with d6 first, and then after that we're gonna analyze the d5 move that's suggested by some good players. So let's go to d6. Bishop e3. Of course, all this analysis were conducted by me. I was feeding Ribka and ideas, and she was absolutely magnificently developing it. And then I was checking it and double checking and triple checking it several times. And after this, I bring it to you. Bishop e7, castle long, castle short, and we go here g4, queen a5, g5. You see, the specifics of this position is that black in fact has great difficulties going b5. a6 is losing immediately because queen is getting trapped, and doubling on g1 a7 diagonal is not very common for Sicilian type of position. But black can go rook b8, and they're preparing b5. Now, very unusual approach by white and very powerful approach by white that gives him very large advantage. Bishop b5. That makes b5 move impossible, and it's very difficult to get rid of this bishop. So actually it's a prophylactic move, and white wants to gain time to go h4, h5, and continue attack on king's side. a6 loses, as I mentioned before, it loses a queen. So what do you do for black? I played Sicilian all my life, and I played this position. I would know what to do here, and I would be very, very confused here. On rook d8, for example, f5. Now I'm threatening f6, and on bishop f8, I go f6. Now give this position to any Sicilian expert. They will tell you it's lost for black. It's not even in the stage where, oh, white has better, white is better, white has some advantage. No, it's lost because white has all the attack. They can take on g7, or they can go h4, h5, and g6, and g6 will only increase the speed of the attack. So what's for black to do? This is absolutely terrible position. Now let's take time out from this position and go to d5. I agree that d5 is, that was suggested by some strong players. I agree that d5 is a better option, but I don't agree that black gets equality. And here is why. E takes d, not e5, e takes d, e takes d, and bishop d3. What we want to do quickly to castle, go f5. Well, for example, bishop e7, castle, castle, we go f5, then we go bishop f4, and queen g3. We don't have to go f5 right away. We can go bishop d2 first, then rook e1. I like white's position a lot. White has more active pieces and better view on a king side. Well, if black tries d4, we go knight e4. On bishop b4 check, bishop d2. Castle. Those are the best moves for both sides. We castle. And on bishop f5, a3. Bishop takes d2, queen takes d2. If this is the best black can get, and I believe white is better, because even after taking the pieces, d4 pawn is weak, bishop is very strong on this diagonal, on h1, a8 diagonal, and if black doesn't take, white may go down knight g3, for example, rook e8. Then we go rook e1 first, and then knight g3. White has some advantage. I have difficulties to put it in numbers, but if this is the worst white can get, I will play this opening all my life. White has not such a big but very comfortable advantage in this position. This will conclude my observations, my analysis and novelties of the Grand Prix. A little bit in fianchetto, and some of and most of it non-fianchetto versions of the Grand Prix. Now I want to analyze one novelty that was played by Grandmaster Vladimir Kramnik. Uh, Together with Ripka, I refuted this novelty, and I was surprised why could Kramnik should play? Why did he play this novelty? And he played against very strong player Morozevich, and he won quickly. That puzzled me. I looked at the game, and I found an answer shortly after that. Let's look at the game first. The game from very well-known position in Grunfeld defense, knight c3 d5, bishop f4, bishop g7, e3, c5, d takes c, queen a5, rook c1. This is all very well known and been played thousands of times. Rook c1, d takes c, bishop takes c4, castle, knight f3, queen takes c5, bishop b3, knight c6, white castles, black goes queen a5, h3, and bishop f5. This is very well known position. Kramnik played knight g5, and he just puts pressure on f7 pawn, but it looks very bold, and it looks unnatural, and it doesn't look very promising. I did find refutation to this, which wasn't very difficult, but actually wasn't very difficult with the help of Ripka. So, but then I tried to figure out why did he do it, and I found out why. First of all, the game was played in Monte Carlo, in Monaco, at the Melody Amber tournament, and it was blindfold game. This novelty is very dangerous against someone, very dangerous if you play against someone who plays blindfolded, and very difficult to find proper response. And Morozevich actually couldn't deal with it properly and lost quickly. And some, well, grandmasters, players of a Kramnik, on a Kramnik's level, they have novelties that they will play in a game like blindfold game, or maybe semi-blitz, like 10-15 minute games. But Kramnik would never tried it in a real tournament game. I'm sure knight g5, he didn't discover this move a day or night before before it was played. He was looking for right opportunity where opponent is not 100% on 100% capability, which is either blind, he has problem with the visibility of the board, or problem with the time. Knight g5 worked just perfect. First move is a serious mistake by Morozevich. He played queen a6 and lost after e4, rook a d8, bishop takes f7, and now rook takes f7 will lose to queen b3, where rook is hanging, bishop is hanging, king h8 is forced, and after king h8, queen e1, h6, was played. E takes F, HG, bishop takes G5, rook takes F7, FG, rook F8, and F4. Very difficult position for black. They have an extra piece. White has 3 pawns. King is in a very dangerous position. And after F4, Queen D3, F5, Knight H5, Rook F3. White got very strong attack and won the game. I don't think it makes sense for us to go and see how the game ended, because you should find an access to a database and look. It was played in 2009 in Melody Amber tournament in Monaco, and White won quickly from this position. Now let's go, and it's not easy to find refutation, but I found it very quickly because Ripka was helping me. For Ripka, the refutation comes in this position very naturally. E5 move. Well, bishop takes F7 has to be played, because if White retreats, actually it will be almost the same position after H6 and bishop takes F7. Let's go on with it. Bishop takes F7, King H8, bishop G3, every move is forced, H6. Now White loses a piece, so E4, HG, EF, rook takes F7, FG, and rook D7. Well, it's a little bit similar what happened in the game, but only a little bit, because black has an extra piece, just like it was in a game. White has 2 pawns and not 3 pawns. And black's king is perfectly safe, and white has no attack. The difference is 1 point. 1 point meaning that instead of winning, you're losing. So position is, after rook d7, is almost lost. Queen c2, rook a d8, and on queen f5, very strong move e4. Exchanging queens, and white has nothing after queen takes a5, knight takes a5, g6 pawn is going to fall there, piece down, and have absolutely lost position. Grandmasters of Kramnik caliber, they can play this in blindfold game, because first of all, opponent does not have a great view and cannot analyze as carefully as in a regular tournament game, and second, it doesn't cost any valuable rating points. Thank you very much. Now I want to go through another novelty played by Kramnik, also not too long ago, maybe a month ago or so, in a very strong tournament against very, very strong opponent. His opponent was one of the best players in the world, talented and very young, Magnus Carlsen. Well, here we go, d4, d5. Now, this novelty was played in a regular tournament, as opposed to previous novelty that played against Morozevich. and it was sort of refuted, not 100% refuted. Refutation means when you play something, you win, but in reality, novelty is bad because you could have lost, you should have lost, or you should have gotten bad position. None of this nature in this game. What happened? Kramnik played. He played novelty. He won very nice game very quickly because Carlsen played badly. If he had played correctly, it would have been a draw. So there was no risk or no chance taking for Kramnik in this game. Let's go on with the game. d4, d5, c4, e6. It's very well known position of Queen's Gambit decline. Knight c3, bishop e7, bishop f4, castle, e3, c5, dc, bishop c5, very well known position, and played many times by both sides. a3, knight c6, queen c2, queen a5. Now there is no b4 because knight simply takes and rook is hanging, so white played rook d1, bishop e7 to stop b4, and after bishop e2, dc, bishop takes c4, knight h5. Well, here instead of bishop d6, which is normal move, Kramnik played castle. And let's see what happened. Knight takes f4, e takes f, g6. I'm sure this was analyzed by both players in home analysis. g3, rook d8, rook takes d8, queen takes d8, rook d1, and bishop d7. Now in this position, I want to say that f5 is a novelty. What I cannot say whether f5 was played on the board, he got this idea on the board, or it was part of home preparation. Either way, this is a good move. This is not best move or gives white big advantage or something, but it's a relatively good move. So f5, and very dangerous for black to face it at the board. G takes f. E takes f is very dangerous to expose the pawn on f7 after queen b3. It's very difficult. It's not possible to protect the f7 pawn because on queen a8 there will be bishop takes f7 anyway, and white has big advantage. gf was played, and after gf, queen d2. So white has sort of a double attack, attacking the bishop on d7 and attacking the king side after queen h6, possibly. So queen b6 was played by Carlsen. Taking bishop is bad, rook d8 of course, and queen is trapped. And after queen b6, queen h8 by Kramnik. This position is dangerous for black, but it's dangerous in a way that black has to be very careful, but it's not, black is not in trouble here. After queen h6, bishop e8 was played, knight g5, attacking h7, bishop has to be taken. Everything, amazingly, everything is forced. Queen takes g5, king f8, and now rook d6. You see, the idea is to play bishop takes e6 and rook takes e6 and develop very strong attack. And that's where Carlsen made a losing move, Queen c7. It's hard to foresee whatever happened in a game, to foresee all that. And Queen c5 was a draw. So the only flaw in this combination that black has a draw, but black has to find it. There is no danger, and this is considered as a good novelty, although game should have ended in a draw. After queen, first of all, let's see what happened in the game after queen c7 and why this is a losing move. Queen h6 check was played, king e7. Now queen h4 check was played. Obviously taking rook is bad because black loses a queen. After queen h4 check, king f8, queen h6 check was played, king e7. White just repeated moves, maybe just to gain some time on the clock. We don't know what was the reason for it, but now knight b5, and black is helpless. Queen a5, b4, and after b4 there is no defense. Knight takes b4 was played. Obviously on ab, black will play queen a1 check, and on king g2 bishop takes b5 and rook will be hanging. But the idea of b4 move was to deflect the knight. Now rook takes c6. This is very beautifully played, and it was very hard for Carlsen to see it at the board coming. Fe, queen takes c6, king d8, and on king f8, queen f6 is a checkmate. So king d8, and what happened in a game was queen f6 check, king c8, queen takes f5 check, king d8, again queen f6 check. Those moves just to gain time, and after king c8 simply ab, and black resigned. There is no queen a1 check because white's queen controls that square, and if queen takes b4 there are multiple ways to win. One of them is bishop e6, and if bishop d7, queen h8 leads to a mate, and if king b8, queen e5 leads to a mate, and black simply resigned. Very nice victory by Kramnik. However, let's get back to kind of a refutation, and I say I have difficulties calling it a refutation. It's a way that black should have played, and the queen c5. Now this move leads to a draw because queen h6, king g8, queen g5, king f8. So there is no progress done by white, and the only try to get something out of it is knight e4, attacking queen, and knight is immune because queen takes c5, then queen takes c4, knight f6, and king e7. Now it's interesting, draw could have been reached here two different ways. White can give perpetual check, or black can do it after knight f6. This position is a draw because king e7, rook d1. Now white threatens knight takes h7, mating black's king. Now knight d4, preparing king's escape on a d file, and everything is forced. Knight e8, knight takes e8, king takes, queen g8 check, king e7, queen takes a8, knight e2 check, king g2, queen e4. This is a draw here, because on king f1, you know, black can play knight d4, practically forcing, because of queen h1 threat and queen e2 threat, threatening, forcing white to give back and exchange, and this position is drawn. This was hardly, it was very difficult to see these continuations by black, and I am sure the advantage Kramnik had was, I suspect, I cannot be certain, that he was preparing this before the game, and Carlsen was not expecting it. Very good way to use novelty. This is the advantage of going deeply into opening analysis. When position is given with evaluation, when analysis normally in theory stops, you take it one step further, and this is great benefit from this approach by Grandmaster Kramnik. Now, this very interesting game I want to bring to your attention is a part of our preparation in accelerated Draken, although it's turned out to be not accelerated Draken. And let me show you what I mean. e4 c5, knight f3 g6. So we have to, when we play accelerated Draken, especially in this move order, we have to be prepared for c3. And this is part of our preparation, and it turned out to be different opening. So this game was played very recently between my former student and my current student, maybe too, Eugene Perlstein with black against world's famous Alexei Shirov. After the game, Shirov told Perlstein that Kramnik recommended him to play c3 against this system. But I don't think Kramnik's expertise in this opening is valid enough. Anyway, Shirov didn't show it. Well, let's go, and it was a little different, played a little different way than I suggest to play, and then I analyze in on my DVDs about accelerated Draken. So bishop g7, d4, cd, cd, d5, e5, bishop g4, and knight c3. In my opinion, this is inaccuracy. I cannot say mistake. Mistake is something that leads to bad, but it's inaccuracy. More accurate move is knight d2. This move was played against me in a slow blitz games twice on the internet. Was played by Gary Kasparov. I played him some games, and he got an advantage in a couple of games. Well, I was not playing it correctly. So if knight bd2, we have to go knight c6, actually we have to go knight c6, yes. And actually on bishop b5, we can even play bishop takes f3, because white must play either queen takes f3, but then what is knight doing on d2, or bishop takes c6, and which is okay position for black because they have good chance of making c5, and taking with a knight on f3, losing after queen a5 check. Anyway, knight c3 was played in that game. Knight c6, bishop e3. Okay, I mentioned here bishop e2 move as a main move, and then rather than play e6, I recommend bishop takes f3 and then e6. The reason why, if knight goes to b5, queen a5 check sends the b5 knight back, and if we have played e6 right away, and after knight b5, bishop takes f3, knight d6 check is possible, and queen a5 doesn't do anything because white's knight is protected. So none of this happened. Bishop e3 was played, e6, h3, bishop takes f3, queen takes f3. This is an interesting position. In my opinion, black is better in this position because of the d4 weakness, and possible moves are knight e7 followed by castling and queen b6, or f6. They are both equally good moves, and f6 is the move that was played by Eugene Perelstein. Bishop b5, trying to relieve the pressure of the e5 pawn, and bishop b5, fe, de, and knight g7. Well, how do I explain knight e7 move? I think my student was a little timid playing player of Shirov's caliber and one of the best attacking players alive, and he didn't want to take e5 pawn and giving white an initiative. But however, after castling and queen f6, Ripka says, and I agree with her 100%, that white does not have even near to sufficient compensation. Well, this position here, FEDE, Shirov played, and he gave to pawn sacrifice not because he thought he would have had very good position after bishop takes e5. I don't think he just liked other options. So we gonna go with knight e7 move, white castle, another daring attempt to get an attack, a strong attack where there is no sufficient ground for it. Castling a6, and this is simply a very large advantage for black. Knight takes, queen g4, queen e7, f4, queen f7, knight e2, h5, queen f3, castling long, king b1, king b8. Black has positional advantage already. Knight d4, knight takes, bishop takes, rook c8, rook c1, and g5. Black has protected pass pawn, much better pawn structure, and as you can see in a couple of moves, it's going to have a better bishop as well. After g5, f takes g, queen g6, king a1, queen takes g5, bishop e3, queen g6, queen f4, and here after bishop h6, queen d4, bishop takes e3, and queen takes e3. Black played rook takes c8, c1, and rook c8. That's a clear mistake because all black wanted is a draw, and they get the draw, but they got the draw in a winning position. This is a bad way to play. In reality, after queen takes g2, after even rook takes c1, rook takes c1, and queen takes g2, black is simply winning. And if white plays queen b6, that's what my student was afraid of, then simply queen takes h3, protecting the pawn, and a3. And Eugene thought that rook c7 threat is very strong, and he was afraid to go to this position. But according to Ripka, after king a8, white has absolutely no compensation. After rook b8, they are 2 pawns down, and if they try rook e7, queen g4, rook endgame is totally lost for white after rook h8. And if rook takes on e6, then simply h4, and white is lost as well. But psychologically, all black wanted to do is to make a draw with black against such a strong player, and they achieved it easily by playing wrong with rook takes c8, rook takes c1, and rook c8. And after take, king c8, king takes c8, queen c5, came ended in a draw in a few moves. So this was kind of a novelty that played by black. f6 was a novelty. f6 was novelty in after e5, see, knight f3. It's a summary I'm providing here. d4, cd, cd, d5, e5, bishop g4, knight c3, knight c6, and bishop e3, e6, h3. This is a kind of a novelty, but it's very, very good novelty, because under no circumstances white is going to have any advantage after that. But on the other hand, white has no advantage after knight e7 as well. And white's way to play this opening was absolutely harmless, and that's what they got in the game. They played absolutely harmlessly the opening, and they tried to get an attack where there was no attack. They ended up in getting a lost position which their opponent didn't take advantage of. So this is all for our preview of latest developments from my point of view, latest developments in chess theory that I happen to pay attention to, and I happen to develop and have my views on it. Thank you very, very much.